Hi guys, it's April and it's monthly wrap-up time. So this month I have managed to rack up about 22 books in total. I did a Genrethon Wrap Up a couple weeks ago, and that covers at least 4 of the books that I read over that readathon. So I won't go over those books here, so you can click over here, or there will be a link in the thingy-mabob down below in case you want to check out those 4 books that I read. But I will continue on and tell you about the rest of the books. I continued on reading the series of Unfortunate Events and got 10, 11, 12 read, which is The Slippery Slope, The Grim Grotto, and The Penultimate Peril. That is the weirdest word on the face of the planet, but learning new words. I really enjoy this series. I'm back and forth about it all the time because I think these would be a wonderful read to children, because there's this quality to the writing that really lends itself well to being read out loud. But me reading it as an adult, there are parts where I'm like, can't we just have one decent grown-up person that doesn't A, disappear, B, die, or C, I don't know, just becomes weird. I understand that's the whole premise of these books, but at the same time, it hurts a little bit. It does. I then got to pick up this beautiful tiny little book, and that is Kindred Spirits by Rainbow Rowell. This is the story of Elena as she goes and stands in line for the newest Star Wars. It takes place in Omaha, which is great because that's where I grew up, so I actually knew the location in which she was talking about. Elena is expecting more out of her experience of standing in line and waiting for Star Wars, and what she gets isn't quite what she was expecting, but she just goes with it and she gets to know the people she's standing in line with, and it's just great, nerdy fun, and I quite enjoyed the read. I then continued on my nerd geekery and read You're Never Weird on the Internet by Felicia Day. I absolutely love Felicia Day. She is a wonderful actress, and so when I was going through and reading this book by her, I was connecting to pieces, and it was good to hear about some of her ups and downs and dealing with life and dealing with the internet and everything that entails. This is one of the books that I would like to own a physical copy at some point, and heck, I would love to have it signed by her because she is just an amazing woman, and what she is doing I find fascinating. So there is that. Then I read Accidentally Creative by Todd Henry. This is a book that is written to help you think on your toes in the moment and how to continue the creative process and not burn yourself out. It was okay. They weren't mind-boggling techniques that I had never not thought of before. So it seems like a lot of, well, duh kind of things, and it's just a matter of actually utilizing those. And a lot of them I do, because otherwise I would be a complete mess. But it was nice to have them in a nice little packet to refresh yourself if you are getting to a point where you're like, what am I doing with my life? Why don't I like creating anymore? And why can't I come up with any kind of ideas? I was then in a retelling kind of mood, so I picked up The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Bendor. This is an Alice in Wonderland retelling. Alice Hart is actually a princess in Wonderland. She is the next in line for the throne, but her aunt Red decides to start a war, and that leads to Alice landing in our world, trying to figure out what's going on and surviving while this whole epic battle is happening in Wonderland, and them trying to figure out how they can get Alice back and defeat Red. It is an interesting story. A lot of it I just really didn't care about. I don't know why I didn't connect with this story. I was reading it as if I was this non-caring entity. At points I was like, can we just move on to something more interesting? It did get there in the end. I really did like how things kind of started going down. I don't know if I'm going to read the rest of the series. Nah, it may happen because they're in this house. I then read Cruel Crown by Victoria Aveyard, which is a novella set for the Red Queen series. This takes the perspective of two women from either side, the Reds and the Silvers, and it shows some of the things that led up to the events in Red Queen. It was nice to see that kind of stuff happen, but at the same time it didn't really lend a lot to the story. You didn't learn things that moved the story in any kind of way, and at points I absolutely really didn't care about the main characters that were the stars of these novellas. The next story I read is Across the Universe by Beth Reeves. This story was absolutely amazing. I was all over with the feels. This is a story about Amy and her parents who are being cryogenically frozen so that they can make the 300-year journey to another planet that humans want to colonize. Because of events on the ship, she is woken up early, and then she has to deal with trying to figure out who's trying to kill the people in these cryogenic states, why the ship is the way the ship is, and how she's going to just deal with the fact that she will probably be very old if she ever gets to see her parents again. I love sci-fi stories. I love dystopic kind of societies, and this messaged them up rather nicely. There were points where I was yelling at the book. There were points where I'm like, you know, this is gonna happen. There was points where I almost bawled. And because of that epic journey that all of this book lent me on, I know I am going to continue on with this series and quite enjoy it. Yay! Then there were these 6 books. These are the Bookhouse books. I'm gonna just drop them everywhere. These are the Bookhouse books. I was actually given these, well, I actually more like just asked if I could have them from my grandmother because I saw them on her shelf and they looked absolutely adorable because each of these have a picture on the front that is just, I love them. They were printed in the 1920s and they are children's nursery rhymes and stories and fairy tales, so I knew I was gonna absolutely enjoy these books. This first volume is all nursery rhymes. It's got wonderful illustrations upon the pages, and I'm trying to be very gentle with these books because, like I said, these were printed in the 1920s, so they are almost 90 years old at this point. Actually, I think they're over 90 years old because they were printed in 1925. So they are 91 years old. I'm being gentle. I'm trying to be gentle, but I absolutely enjoyed the illustrations the most in these stories because each one covers a different set of mythologies, a different set of fairy tales, a different set of short stories. These covers, I'm slowly going to hold up each of them so you can see because they are a joy to look at. There's just something about this style that I really, really love. And I think that is the whole reason that I really love to collect fairy tale editions, is because of all of the different illustration styles that you can find in these kinds of books. The artist in me is just in awe of what these people can do. What I also think is absolutely amazing is each of these books has a texture to the cover and it almost looks like it's painted on. And then these are embossed and to most people these books wouldn't mean a whole lot. To me, they mean everything because I know that my family has gone through these books. They have been read from these books. They have lived with these books. And so there is a history there that I just really, really enjoy. I then finally picked up A Court of Thorns and Roses. I have been terrified to read this book for so long, and then Shayla, she's like, I have this book, I need to read it, I'm slightly terrified of reading it too, why don't we just read it together? And so we did. I will link her information down below because she is absolutely wonderful. She managed to read this book in a day and then I was dragging it on for a week. I think my fear of this book is what made me drag it on so much. I really liked it as I was reading it, but as soon as I put it down, I really couldn't get myself to pick it back up. Once I really just decided that I am not going to set this down for any kind of reason, I'm just going to plow through this. I really like this book. I don't know what it is. Yes, I am a sucker for fairy tale retellings. There is something about the way she built the Fae world that reminded me a lot of my Labyrinth fan fiction reading days, and I think that is what got me the most. She does pull some things from the Goblin Market poem, which I mark things that I'm like, oh, I see where this is coming from, and I see where this is coming from, and that, I think, is what like really drew me into this story. I was having flashes of Genrethon as I was reading. I was having flashes of the Psyche and Arrow story. I was having flashes of Beauty and the Beast, and all of those coming together. I really, really liked. Some of the characters were a little flat and stereotypical. The bad guy over here who is pulling her in for reasons of his own devising, the best friend who's just all over the place, and the love interest himself who is hot, cold, all over the place. I will be reading more. Yeah. That will be happening. My brother gave me this copy of Jane Eyre maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I don't even remember anymore. It's a big book. At least it looks like a big book, so I've always been very intimidated about reading this story, but I decided, what the heck, why not? I have loved all of the adaptations I have ever seen about this book, so why was I not reading it? And I did read it, and I did enjoy it. I really like the character of Jane Eyre, how she's this solid, steady kind of character. I am glad that I finally picked up this classic and can check it off and say, yep, I've read it, and I've enjoyed it, and I will forever really love this copy. Finally, I read The Night Circus. Why did I not pick up this book sooner? My roommate really, really loved it. A lot of people on YouTube have just said how much they truly enjoy the story. Well, I'm not sure why I didn't pick it up sooner. It just became available on the library and I didn't have any other books that I could pick up, so I picked it up. For those of you who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, The Night Circus is a story about a circus that randomly appears in the middle of the night. It's got this magical feel about it, and the story is told through flashbacks and you walking through the circus, and they all kind of meld together to form the story behind this night circus and the illusionist battle that is going on. It is beautifully written, the imagery is amazing, and I could just gush about this book for hours. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend you do. If you grew up on the Harry Potter series, my guess is you're really going to like this story. So those are all the books that I have read in the month of April. It was a good month. I'm guessing May is going to be even better. Tell me what your favorite book that you read this month was, and if I should pick it up. I heart your beautiful faces. Bye. Boom!